Have you ever thought about how the biggest lies stay out of the news? They hide in the smallest, sweetest things. That's where the story starts. Not when Meghan Markle is in front of millions of people in a white dress. Not even when she walked down the aisle of St. George's Chapel. They didn't notice something else. The way her mother, Doria Raglan, sat at that royal wedding by herself. Take a look. The day was shown all over the world with cameras zooming in from every angle. One of the most memorable pictures was of Doria sitting by herself next to the Queen of England. There were no aunts, uncles, cousins, or other family members around her at all. Against the heavy weight of the throne, there was only one figure in mint green. It looked odd. It didn't feel right. And nothing is ever left to chance in a home where looks are everything. The palace is a machine that cares a lot about how things look, so why did it let this happen? How come Meghan, who talked a lot about family, didn't have a single blood cousin from her mom's side in those pews? Not only was that awkward, but it was also weird. A sign that there was something wrong with letting too many of Meghan's US cousins get close to that church. That path leads to a blank spot in Meghan's family tree when you start following it. A place that the palace worked hard to hide. This is where things start to feel strange. When British media heard that Harry and Meghan were getting married, they did what they always do. A cool family tree of Meghan's was written out. The king and queen love family trees. It's a part of who they are, their business, and their proof of history. Each name and branch was carefully written down so that everyone could see them. While Meghan's report looked fine at first glance, something seemed wrong. Meghan's mom, Doria Raglan, didn't have her own mom's name in the space that should have been there. There was only empty space. Some people ignored it at first. Perhaps a mistake was made by a worker. Maybe someone had taken Doria in. It's possible that no one knew about her mother. The trend then showed up again and again in different records and charts. Over and over, the same lack showed up. That's when it was clear that this wasn't just bad papers. This was done on purpose. A family past that should have been clear was carved with a deliberate silence. Why didn't you include the grandmother's name? Why would you hide one of the most basic parts of a family tree? That is, unless adding that name showed something that could change the story Meghan and the royal family were telling the world. We didn't just guess what this empty room was for. It was a sign of danger. And this is where the missing piece finally showed up. The truth came out 8 months after the wedding. The name was finally found after a lot of guessing. Janet Arnold was born in Sandusky, Ohio, on September 4, 1929. Passed away on December 27, 2000, aged 71. There were black and white records that showed that this woman had a life and a background. There are birth and death records, cemetery books, and church directories. As soon as Janet's name was clear, the path became very clear. Everything that had been kept for a long time could now be put together. The family tree wasn't empty any longer. It was packed full of names, times, and links. But this is where the story went from being interesting to being scary. Because Janet's history didn't read like a normal family history after it was put back together. The records did more than just fill in the holes. They told us why those holes were there in the first place. It wasn't a mistake. Adoption was not it. It wasn't a mistake. It was a secret that was hid on purpose. And when it came out, it had disturbing claims that caused not only Meghan's family but also the royal household to shake. The case should have been over when Janet Arnold's name was finally found out. A grandmother saw that a space was filled. That's it for now. But it was only the start. As historians tried to piece together her family tree, it started to twist in ways that didn't make sense. The more they looked, the darker it got. Let's get it straight. James T. Arnold was Janet's father. He was born in 1909 and died in 1939, when he was only 30 years old. Natalie May Allen Pritchard was her mother. She was born in South Carolina in 1897 and died in Los Angeles at the age of 83. From the outside, it looked like a normal pair. As the 1920s begin, a young man and woman start a family. But when the family tree was drawn out, something stood out. Gertrude Elizabeth Sadler was both Nettie Mae's mother and James T. Arnold's mother. There are two different family trees that both lead back to the same woman. Take a moment to think about that. They were both raised by the same mother. The cousins weren't very far away. They were not relatives. By blood, they were brother and sister, but they were only half relatives. That's why Janet's parents were taken out of public records. Because you can't get away from the result once you write those names down next to each other. A half-brother and half-sister had a child together, and that child was Meghan Markle's grandmother, Janet Arnold. This is where the story goes from being strange to being very exciting. The papers say that Janet Arnold was the child of a sexual relationship. Not the kind that people try to play down by saying, oh, they were cousins. Back then, it was normal. They were closer than cousins, but not as close as far-away relations. They were half-brother and half-sister. In the United States, this kind of partnership has never been okay. In the past, when aristocrats and royals often married cousins to keep the genes strong, being this close was seen as wrong. Not a whisper from the papers. They make it clear. Janet Arnold was born when two children of the same woman got married. Now, every time this story is told again, the word alleged has to be used again for legal reasons. That word is necessary. But what makes the story so interesting is that the accusations aren't just made up. They have roots in records that anyone can find. Birth certificates, lists of cemeteries, census records, and trends that show up over and over in state files. There is black and white proof that tells a story that most people would rather not know. That's why the palace got scared. Once Prince Harry and Meghan got serious, background checks were already being done by the royal family. A fine-toothed comb is used to go through the family background of every royal bride. It's about how things look, protecting the government, and keeping its good name. So, picture the time when Meghan's suitors looked up her family tree, filled in the blanks with names, and found out that the grandmother she was descended from was allegedly the child of an adulterous relationship. What people did wasn't just embarrassed. There was a risk. Possible trouble if the story got out. Risk of DNA problems if inbreeding caused people to worry about their future children. And most importantly, there is a risk to the monarchy's reputation. The monarchy is very good at making itself look clean, even though its past is full of questionable marriages. They picked silence as the answer. Take Janet's parents off of public family trees. Keep Doria Ragland away from other people at the wedding so that no family member could talk to a reporter over champagne. The empty spot was meant to be there. That absence shows that the palace was afraid and thought it was safer to hide the truth than to face it. That's the kind of choice that ends empires, as we can see from history. This means that Meghan and Harry have to live with a story that they can't fully direct. It doesn't matter how hard they try to start over in California, this family history will always be there. When they make choices, talk to people, or go out in public, Doria, everything is influenced by what the house already knew. It's another test of life for the royal family. They've been through cheating, divorce, money problems, and even abdications. But lying about incest in the family tree of a royal bride is something they would never let come to light. They buried it in the hopes that it would stay quiet. But this story shows that being quiet doesn't mean nothing. When the truth comes out, it makes things even more dangerous. After all this, the questions are still stronger than the solutions. Why hide the names if the truth was going to come out in the end? Why should Doria be left to her own devices at the wedding? A picture that made people even more suspicious instead of talking about the past directly. Another question is what else might be hidden in Meghan's past now that this long-kept secret has been brought to light? Because families that are strong fall like that. Not because of the act itself, but because of how it was hidden and how the silence itself became proof. After all, Meghan Markle brought more than just her own story into the royal world. She had the weight of a family tree on her. It is said that the palace worked hard to hide. History has shown us over and over that the secret itself is never what hurts people the most. The silence that comes after.